Dave Aheimer is my guest today. Dave and I are in an accountability pod together, in a group together, and he is another, of course, entrepreneur and dad. So I wanted to bring him on. So Dave, if you can, give a quick introduction about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as a dad and an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So my name is Dave Aheimer. I am a dad, an entrepreneur, a member of GoBundance, a husband, and a willing participant in an amazing family who has absolutely saved me from myself. So I've been an entrepreneur longer than I've been a dad. And when my little guy came along, I remember having a very distinct moment of clarity at an entrepreneurs organization event in Ohio, right outside of Cleveland, where I had to make a decision about redefining my win. And whether or not my win would be my business or my newly born son who was in crisis and in distress. And so it was an absolutely life-changing moment for me to make the decision to make my son and my family my win.
Awesome.
In 2019, prior to the pandemic, I ran into some very significant problems with my business and just unbelievable stress. It was the same year that my wife and I got married. We got married in the spring, and then the business problems really started, and it was without a doubt, one of the most challenging times in my life. And if I had not had them in my life, my wife and my little boy, Adam, I got to tell you, I don't know what I would have done. And it's kind of the same principle, right? You hold on, you don't let go. You do your job. You show up. And sometimes that means showing up early and making coffee for the boys and staying late and making sure the accounting's done. At the end, it's maybe one part stubborn, one part labor of love. Trying to make sure and just not quit and be tenacious about moving forward as an entrepreneur. And it's a lot like an EKG. I mean, fatherhood, it has its ups and downs. Business, it has its ups and downs. And some years are going to be great and some years are going to be really tough, right? But keeping them at the forefront of my mind that they're the ones who are more important, even more important than the business. And at the end of the day, with the inbound pandemic, I had this internet retail business that was selling home decor. Everybody's stuck at home, buying a bunch of stuff on the internet, fixing up their houses, and my business took off like a rocket ship during the pandemic. That was almost as bad as it was in 2019 because now I'm working triple hours and I'm the guy coming in with the boys in the shop and running the wood shop and running production, and running internet retail and producing this home decor and shipping it out. And I saw them even less when the business was really, really good. And I made a decision at that point that this is not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I didn't want to run this kind of internet retail manufacturing company in Northeast Ohio for the next 10 years. And so with that spike in pandemic growth, I seized on an opportunity to sell my business and exit my business and took that time to spend it with my wife and my son.
Do you have any thoughts or ideas or plans to involve the kids in the business, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting question because, I have an appreciation for where I'm at in life because I was a have-not who had to learn to become a person who has. And, my son's grown up with a tremendous advantage here being a have and not really experiencing the have-not lifestyle or have-not mentality. And so I think it's important that he works for his own destiny and works his own path. And I want to make sure that happens. And as far as like his involvement in my businesses, of course, I'd be thrilled, to have him involved in the businesses in any capacity they want to be involved in the businesses. But, I also want him to choose his own path and go his own road. And so that's a balance that's going to have to occur with time. Now, that being said, I have finance and economics conversations with my kid all the time, which probably are a little bit over his head for being a 7-year-old, but it starts with, he gets the equivalent of a $20 allowance per month. And, there's X number of doggy poops that he's got to pick up in order for that allowance to materialize. So understanding the value of labor and the value of his recompense is certainly not enough to get the toy that he wants when we go to the toy store. And so we're understanding the value of savings through object lessons. And I make sure that he understands, what finance is and the difficult nature of earning money and the even more difficult nature of delayed gratification, and teaching what delayed gratification looks like and, how saving. And I talk about this with my guys in the CEO coaching, but to be an entrepreneur is to live like most people won't so that you can live like most people can't. And it's about that sacrifice. And at least from, a bootstrap startup perspective, it's about sacrifice and putting the business first and understanding that I might not get paid in the first couple of whatever months, years, hopefully not a decade. It might be the wrong business if it's that far out. But long-term investing. And, my son has the opportunity to deposit his $20 into daddy's wallet and earn long-term interest. And he has yet to make that choice. It's really important to talk about the importance of failure and build that entrepreneurial spirit of resilience, and having him understand the reason that we fall down is so we can learn to get up. Yeah. And that these things are okay and to try again and be encouraging him trying again. And, that goes from riding a bike to building the skeleton dinosaur model that we built last night, or reading a story to dad. A lot of times I think that boils down to me acting against my nature and being patient, because I'm not naturally a patient man, and sticking with it and being consistent with my encouragement to him that, it's okay to fail and it's okay to try again. And even providing him opportunities, because we had a hard time getting him introduced to soccer, and, he didn't want to do it because he wasn't very good with it with the other kids who've been, this is Brazil, they've been playing since they were 3, right? So he's behind the 8 ball trying to learn the sport. And we've got him involved with an after school program where they, they have a coach and have a bunch of kids and put them in a situation where it wasn't, dad trying to teach him, but like put him in an environment with other children where he could learn, and showed him in that way, like introducing stuff to get him comfortable with, being awkward in sport and not understanding how the sport works, but understanding that, dad says there's an importance in sports and you need to learn how to function on a team, and team efforts are really important, and failing's okay so long as you've tried, and then you're okay with your level of trying. Again, he's 7, so we take it on the level that we can take it and kind of move on with the work. That's important. That I'm not, shaking my state championship in front of his nose and telling him about how great it is and how he's never going to have it, and that kind of like negative reinforcement. But it's important. It's really important. I got to say this too. The things that I'm teaching him, I'm repeating to myself, and I have to kind of remind myself, you should probably take your own advice. Yeah. On that one, and not give up and not try. And I find myself kind of, parroting lessons that I should be following.
So, Sergio, welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you. If you can, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll jump into being very dad focused.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Adam. So my name is Sergio Altamari. I'm based out of Philadelphia. 47 years old, got a little girl. She's about to be 6 on March 11th. I'm a reborn, recareered over and over again. Had spent 22 years working for the Federal Reserve, had a day job, launched a company in the meantime. We're in self-storage, syndication, moving more and more towards larger private equity. My wife, daughter, and I are very close and tight, as you might expect. And so my whole objective in life is to find that right amount of balance between creating legacy wealth and doing what I enjoy, which is now building a company, and spending as much time with my family, while also doing my best to create or at least allow for my child to be, develop her own way and kind of learn from my mistakes, things that I wish that my parents did or didn't do. And, along the way, just enjoy the ride and the journey.
Do you have any plans to involve Stella in the business, either at this age, at a later age, at, whenever, or is it more just, we'll see?
I mean, similar to your answer with when it comes to military, we'll see what she gravitates to. If she shows an interest, she can start. I'll hire her next week. When we had our property management business and we were in residential, Corinne would take her, to do showings. We had Stella helping, and we had coin-operated laundry machines and counting coins. So it's like exposing her to elements of as far and wide of life as possible, and see what she gravitates to. She's showing more interest in arts, and that may evolve, because I'm more of a intellectual type of experimental type of person, that in some cases she's, we do little science stuff and things like that. It really comes down to she's got to show an interest and something that she wants to do, and I will be aware of that and kind of provide for her for the avenue to do so. Outside of that, there's not going to be, like you said, I'm not forcing anything. If she wants it, it's there. If she doesn't, that's okay too. I don't want her to avoid or want or not want, either because of the bad experience or correlation. If she said, hey, I don't want to do that because daddy was never home and he always worked, and so I don't want to do that, then that's one thing, versus being forced. I just observe what she's doing, what she wants to do, and we try to expose her to as much as possible. And I mean, we got a lot of work to do. We'd like to do a lot more traveling just so she can experience more culture and whatever. But again, it goes back to whatever she's showing passion for, and we're just going to give her the tools and resources and, where possible, some learnings to pursue it or not. I mean, no, I have no grand ideas beyond that.
John, I want you to do a quick introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of business stuff you're in, and tell me about your family as well.
Well, thanks for having me. So my name is John, originally from New Jersey, dad of 2 kids, a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy, husband to my wife, Sana's, and we live in South Florida now by way of Los Angeles. So we lived in Los Angeles for about 5 years, and a fur dad too. I got a little dog named Wilbur. So family of 5. I'm involved in real estate. I still have a W-2 in the data world. So I'm a techie and, doing my best to balance everything. I feel like my mother groomed me to be the real estate entrepreneur that I am today. So my mother got into real estate as, single parent, 4 kids. She got into real estate because she didn't have a college degree and she needed to provide. So she got into real estate in 1984, and she's been crushing it. But wherever we were in the car driving somewhere, it was Carlton Sheets, Zig Ziglar, Anthony Robbins.
Before it was Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Yeah. So he was Anthony Robbins on a cassette tape. So I was listening to all these things. So I'm actually doing the same to my kids.
That's phenomenal.
I'm not so much with the podcasts, but more with quizzing them, making them think outside the box, doing little math problems, having them figure things out, even people profiling. That's something my mom used to do with me, of trying to, pick up on subtle cues on people. And it's been great. So for example, my daughter, she's 6, she plays Roblox, and there's this game where you have to trade things and you have to try to level up. And I'm trying to show her the importance of, you never go backwards on a trade. You only want to trade for equal or better. Yeah. And she's taking that and running with it. And she's learning the value of business. If I give you this, you have to give me this. I'm only taking equal or greater value. Yeah. And I'm so she has a little portfolio of these things. And I'm this is awesome. I feel so proud that, she has these little things in her portfolio of being traded. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
How I've incorporated my business life with my parent life when it comes to my kids, I'm always trying to find opportunities to find teachable moments. And a great book on that is also The Psychology of Money. It talks about even not just your family upbringing, but also the year you were born is going to impact how you think of money and how you think of business and things like that. I'm trying to really shape my kids with the views that I have on money. And, money is not the root of all evil. Money is just a tool, and it's not going to make you happy, but you need to be well-rounded, things like that. Just trying to instill the same values that I have. I do make them earn the things that they want, right? Mm-hmm. So, even when it came to potty training, I had a full sheet on the fridge with check marks, yellow and brown check marks of, the things that they needed to get done. And if they got to the end, they got a prize or a toy or something like that. And it worked on both kids really well. They were really excited to put the check marks up. And now I'm implementing chores. I mean, my 6-year-old wants stuff. Like she wants Pokemon figurines and cards and things like that. So it's all right. So my wife and I decided that we're going to implement 5 things a day that she has to do. And she, it's going to be, she can get $1 a day. So each thing that she does is 20 cents. And it's make your bed in the morning. You have to dress yourself, get yourself ready for school. You have to not fight with your brother. You have to brush your teeth without asking, and you have to go to bed on time. If you can do these 5 things, you'll get $1 that day. Now it's impossible because she fights with her brother every day. So she'll never get that $1. But now she's excited to get like, oh, do I get a check mark? I dress myself. Do I get a check mark? I'm like, oh, you get a check mark. So she's realizing the power of accomplishment, right? The sense of accomplishment. And I feel like I'm empowering her to get those endorphins of, wow, I just completed this. Let me put a check mark up. That's going to be money later. Right?
Put a dopamine hit just in putting the check mark. Like
really,
you want to do more check. That literally in your body there, you get a dopamine hit hitting a check mark.
And she's learning that in school too, right? Because every time she reads 5 books, she gets a star for every book, and if she gets 5 stars, she gets this fake currency that the school has, and then she can buy a little toy, right? So she's learning that in school as well. I mean, we all had that at some point in school, right? You put a little sticker up if you did what you were supposed to do. And so I'm trying to implement that with her. I think my little boy's a little too young, but I mean, she understands the concept and she's getting it.
Do you have any thoughts on involving your kids in the business, or do you have thought about doing any of that? I know some people, they use their kids as child models inside of their Airbnb photos, right? And I can pay them, and they can get an IRA all of a sudden and do all this stuff. Have you put any thought to, or do you have any desire to bring your kids into the business?
Not as kids. No. I've decided I want them to explore whatever avenues they want to explore. And I've essentially said that, listen, no matter what you do, you're graduating high school. I want you to get a college, the college degree thing I'm probably lenient on because I don't think it's going to be really worth that much.
If it even is now.
15 years. Right. Exactly. My wife and I have had the decision that if they said they came to us and they're like, I want to be an actor or something like that, where you're just like, oh, here we go. Or like, I want to be an artist. And I'm like, I want them to be able to live their dreams. Right. Cause in a sense, I don't feel like I did. I mean, I'm living my dream right now, but you know what I mean? Like I never had the chance where it's like, where if money is not an issue, what would you do? Right. And I feel like a lot of people don't get to explore those avenues. So we basically said, hey, you get 2 years. I will support you for 2 years while you live your dream. But if you can't figure out how to support yourself, you gotta get a job. You gotta figure it out. So I don't want to incorporate the kids in the business as kids. I want them to kind of figure out what they want to do. If they want to get into it, awesome. Like that's all. Like I want my kids to, we all think about legacy, right? I don't want my legacy going to the state or, so I would love for my kids to take on the businesses that I'm taking on, but I don't want them to feel pressure to do it because my mom's in real estate. She has a great book of business. She wanted me to take on her book of business. She wanted to pass on her legacy to me. And I said, no, because I don't want to live in New Jersey. I don't want to be a realtor. So that would have been the downside. So I don't want my kids to have to feel pressure like, man, I got to take on this portfolio. Like it's a lot of work. And I remember dad doing all this work when we were kids and I don't want to do that. So I don't want them to feel pressure for that. But if they come to me wanting to, I'll encourage it to them. And I think I've shown them, the power of real estate. Mm-hmm. And, they're going to know that like, hey, if you do decide to do this, there's a lot of benefits to it. Real estate has been driving force behind our ability to do the things that we do. I hope that they follow in those footsteps as well, but I'm giving them the option to do whatever it is that they want to do.
Welcome to the podcast today. I have a fantastic friend, business partner, GoBundance partner, man of many talents, Aaron Velke. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell me a bit about yourself, and let's hear about who Aaron Velke is, what you do for business, about your family, etc.
I've got a company called Get Out of Your Own Way. We also work with companies that are ready to up-level their leaders and ready to up-level their culture. I'm a real estate investor. I'm about a year into being a dad, 10 months in 2 days into being a dad. I published a book on that called Let Her Play in 2020. I've done apartment management. I'm a traveler that loves to wander the world and take in culture and learn about the way that people are. I'm fascinated by people, and I've now made that my passion and my venture. It's important. If you're a CEO that's listening, if you're in a position of influence, you're a leader at work, the same thing that we're talking about here applies to work. If you think that for a moment you've got to go into work and fake being strong and fake being clear and fake all this nonsense about company and direction and team, and it's not going to work. And some of the best conversations you can have with your company, your team, I think there is a degree of discretion around what you share, but there is also a need for this in leadership, where saying something like, "Hey, I'm not at my best right now. This is what's going on, and it's irresponsible for me to have this meeting under this case," or, "Hey, I need some space to be able to handle my stuff so that I can show up better for the team," or, "Hey, I don't have an answer for you right now, and I'm aware that this answer is incredibly pertinent to us and moving forward. I just don't have it yet." Rather than like fake it and put on the mask, you'd be shocked at how relatable you become as a leader and how much that creates a positive culture of, "Hey, I'm not at my best right now," which is really important if you actually want the best out of your team. So it's just important that we share that with leaders too.
So tell me, boy, I know Emerson again, 10 months old. What kind of direction do you see you wanting to raise him in? Like, as far as, you've worked hourly jobs, now you run businesses. I was a former military guy that runs an education company, runs real estate stuff. Then kind of like, I don't know what direction I want to bring my kids. I want to expose them to as much as possible. And maybe this is a loaded question because of what we already talked about before about not wanting to force our kids in one way or another because of what we do. But what are your thoughts on raising Emerson as, you are running businesses and you're doing all this stuff? Like, what kind of direction are you planning to give, or what kind of involvement in the business, or what kind of, what are your thoughts on where that goes as Emerson gets older?
Well, I'll quote, there's a quote by Wayne Gretzky about skating where the puck is going, not where the puck is. I don't know what the exact quote is, but I think it is skate where the puck is going, not where it's been. And if that's true, then what I'm preparing him for is a world 20 years from now.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling to think about. It's very hard in get out of your own way coaching and all of our mindset work. We try to keep people to a 3-year bandwidth. Like, it's very hard to project who you want to become and what the world looks like and what your business might look like beyond 3 years. So I'm mindful that that's the horizon that we can actually see. But thinking about for him, given where I see things are going, what the doors that I want to help him open are largely about 3 things. One, undoubtedly, is emotional intelligence. He's got to be able to handle the complexities of emotions in a world that is becoming more and more destabilized around that conversation.
Yeah.
So that's number one. The second is financial intelligence. And this, I've spent 8 years building a financial education company. And in that, I've learned that I knew very little. My dad was successful in what he knew, but he knew very little. I've spent 8 years building a financial education company. And in that, I've learned that I knew very little. My dad was successful in what he knew, but he knew very little. Yeah. And I'll probably be a big change maker in the family. So I want him to learn some of that too. And I know very little still comparatively. That's why I'm in a community like GoBundance, because I learn something every time somebody types a post. I'm like, oh my God, for sure. I don't know what any of those letters mean. The part of that that's important is not necessarily does he have to become an entrepreneur, but I do believe that the world is trending towards a more entrepreneurial themed employment cycle, meaning that he may not have to be an entrepreneur. He can certainly work for somebody else. There's no shame in that. I have no issues whatsoever with it. However, he will need to think like an entrepreneur, which is find problems, offer solutions, look where people aren't looking, identify, solve. The third is communication. And you could tally it under emotional intelligence, but I'll qualify it differently. It's largely about the way that we sell, the way that we handle conflict, the ways that we talk to ourselves, the ways that we engage with customers or clients, there's such a large gap there that for him to learn how to communicate what he wants to communicate is one of the biggest skills ever. This is a focus of a lot of my coaching, whether clients know it or not. We often think that the message that we're saying is the message that someone is getting. And if someone is in sales and they want more sales, the perimeter of sales is like the tactics. The body of sales is emotional intelligence and communication. Can you get those two things figured out? Figure out their pain points, communicate like a human being, build trust. Then you're actually helping them with the sale. And, God forbid someone is manipulating through that that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But if you can communicate effectively, I think you're in good shape. What that also means to me is that if that is the future, then presently, I have to be willing to let go of some of the things that I want to believe need to happen. I want to show him how to work hard. Well, work hard is going to look very different in 20 years. I want him to have the same experience where he kicks a ball around in the cul-de-sac. We used to play wiffle ball for hours. That probably will never happen. That time is kind of gone. So it's also about letting go and surrendering to what I think childhood should be for what I experienced and what I got. And again, putting the lens back on me as the center of his childhood experience. And instead flipping and making sure that he's the center of that childhood experience. So I think that's going to really challenge me to let go of these things that I think he needs to learn or experience.
We got Frank Smallin, a good friend of mine, and also, as with a couple of the previous folks you guys have heard, a GoBundance member as well. So, Frank, if you can explain a little bit about who you are, your background, both business and as a dad, and then we'll kind of just keep the conversation rolling from there.
I've got a wife and two kids, and an 8-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. I live near Annapolis, Maryland. The actual name of the town I live in is Davidsonville. My business is in Crofton, Maryland, and so I run a few businesses here in this area. One is a manufacturer's rep firm that sells commercial industrial heating equipment. Another one is that one's called United Energy Products, and the other company is a company that installs the chimney products we sell for boilers, water heaters, grease duct generators, and other applications. That's based here in Maryland. I also have 3 companies, one in Florida and one in Texas, one in California, that sells the chimney products that we sell here. So we're that's brand new. It's about 18 months old.
So now you have a much larger business with multiple businesses out on top of it. So how do you envision, or do you try not to envision, or whatever the case may be, your kids' involvement in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I want to have opportunities for them if they're interested. I guess I kind of like my dad's approach, the way he did it with me. I'd like for them to go get some other experience if they want to. My dad never pushed me. He never really let me know that I could if I wanted to. So maybe the only thing different I do with my dad was with my kids say, it's here if you want it, but if you don't want to, that's fine too. But if you do, it would be good if you went and worked for somebody for 3, 4, 5 years and then come in. There's going to be, my Colin's 10. We're talking 12, 14 years before they'd even be kind of hitting the workforce. And what this business could be then, the hockey curve effect has happened over the last couple of years. I mean, we just we're located here in the DC area. Did a couple businesses here, but we just started one in Florida, started one in Texas, started one in California. There's going to be so many more opportunities and things.
Yeah, for sure.
I had one opportunity, one job that was available in one place. They're going to have so many different options that hopefully all keeps going well by the time they get out. If they want to go to live in California, they want to go in Texas, and there'll be other states. If they want to get into the chimneys or boilers or into manufacturing, so hopefully they'll have a lot of options. And if they're not into it, then they're not into it. I'll be able to have the ability to support them and what they want. I mean, it might be cool if they're into something else and I go in and go into business with them, or give them some money to fund what they want to do and help them get started and be a part of it. I haven't really come across anything great yet, especially for an 8 and a 10-year-old. Other than bringing them to work with me every so often, but they show interest in it and they actually ask about it. So just kind of having conversations with them.
For sure.
They'll ask, well, what, do you own this? Do you like, what's this? Like, but then the other side is like, it'd probably be easier for me to teach them to do the real estate, 'cause they can't come here every day and really learn what we do.
Yeah.
The real estate stuff can be done at home. Like, I want to start getting Colin into understanding how I'm managing, my condo at the beach. And, other real estate. I don't have a whole lot of real estate right now. I've sold it off more over the last 3 or 4 years than purchased, but I want to build it up again. And just like one thing my dad never did, probably because he didn't have the money, is investing, right? Even like just 401ks or, being LP or something like that. So I really want to start involving them, at least, when I'm going through some of these things, bringing them in and at a 10 or 11-year-old level, explaining to them what I do. Because when I didn't know about that stuff until I was 40, right? So just probably, I'm probably thinking more in terms about like, what didn't I know? What that I didn't know until I'm 40, or I'm sure there's stuff I'll learn at 50 that I didn't know. Like, what can I teach them that I didn't know? Because the business side is going to be hard. Like, I think that, once, Colin gets in high school and they're starting to work jobs, like if they want to come in here and work, like that would be the way to start really bringing them into this business. Outside of just talk, I tell them what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm going to Toronto because I'm talking to this company because I want to buy them and this. So I talk to them as much as I can. It's something I think about more and more, and I haven't really come up with. To your point, like getting them into buying something and doing something, like the guy had a paper route when I was a kid. I cut lawns and stuff like that. I think they're just a little too young for some of these things that I can start pushing them to. But it's on my mind. I haven't found anything,
So Joe Wexler on the podcast, he is a good buddy in GoBundance. Joe, I want you to start kind of just give me a little bit of background on you, your family.
Joe Wexler, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. Been married to Sarah. We're coming up on 15 years this fall, so suddenly 15 years. We have a 10-year-old son named Ben and an 8-year-old daughter named Genevieve. And as you can imagine, those ages are very busy, and we're fortunate to be able to put a lot of energy towards them. I own a handful of small businesses. I spent a lot of my time before we had kids in management consulting, and I was traveling all over the world, 100% of the time. And once kids started coming, realized that wasn't really sustainable for the way we wanted to live as parents, specifically me. The one that I'm the CEO of obviously kind of ebbs and flows a little bit more and demands a little bit more time. It's growing very quickly. So again, I've got a great team there to handle all day to day, but I'm still pretty heavily involved in strategic.
So at 8 and 10, your kids probably, I don't know how much you talk to them right now about the businesses, but I would imagine they probably are they a part of these types of conversations to be able to say, hey, this is something we're looking at, or how does that go?
That's probably been the most fun thing about the last couple of years with them is, they're both super smart, and every parent says that. So take it with a grain of salt. But they're both like enterprising young kids, and I've actually am also intentional about having them understand the responsibilities of being a business owner, and having so they hear. I let them and ask them to listen to conversations of mine where I'm like talking to employees. They're making decisions about insurance or like all these things, and they know, like, my daughter's age. Like, my daddy's boss of 4 companies or whatever. But we talk about, like, what that means, and not that there's this, certainly no entitlement from their end. But, like, it's not just that run stuff over here. They understand that it's, like, a really cool responsibility, and it's challenging. So they're part of all that stuff. And hopefully they see the hard work and and that it actually means something when you're employing somebody else. It's pretty cool. We've tried the family board meeting and being consistent about like actually having set times where we're talking about things and, varying degrees of success. We do have family values, and we do goal setting, individual and family goal setting every year, which has been great. But still not to some of the structure that I'm sure some of your other guests will have and that we've heard from some of our mutual friends. But when it comes to the business conversations, I think, and I've heard other people talk about this too, like just not doing that in a silo, so they're aware of what you're doing, I think and letting them listen is probably as powerful, if not more powerful, than any other thing you could do. And then, hey man, what did you think of that conversation? Did you understand what we were talking about? What questions do you have? And trying to just then have a conversation like, yeah, did you hear how hard that was? Or do you think I did a good job? Or how would you have handled that differently? And then from there it goes into explaining the context, and hopefully they're absorbing kind of the bigger picture of things. And you see that manifest when they say things like, are you an employee or an employer? Or they'll make connections later on that is really surprising to me. But I think probably the biggest thing is just allowing them to be there and listening when you're having some conversations every now and then, without it being like the only thing that they know you for, obviously. Just real quick back to the conversations of like having your kids listen to your work stuff and make sure they're aware of it. Like, you don't want them to know you only for the work. But if you're going to create a life where you're going to be present with them more often than you're working, inevitably you're going to have some of that. And I think that's like being intentional about them understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it the way you are, to have the time with them, while also understanding the responsibility that you have as the entrepreneur, the business owner. Like, that's kind of a crazy thing that most people don't have to worry about. Yeah. So, like, for instance, we did a 6-week RV trip last summer, which was incredible. I mean, like, how so much dedicated time with the family. This is after COVID, so we just wanted to like harness all of that as much as possible. And in 6 weeks, you can't just like completely shut it all down and shut it off. Yeah. I mean, so the fact that they can see you, or at least in my situation, like see me on vacation doing something new with them, exploring, present, but then be able to like peel off and have a conversation that's work related, and them understand the magnitude of that without them feeling like you're being taken away from it. I think something you have to work through. And the entrepreneurs groups, that Go Abundance group and all that, and people that we hang out with, everyone's like sort of gets that. Like, I was on a trip with four other Go Abundance guys a couple weeks ago for the weekend, and it was so cool because we were like exploring a city together, and every now and then like you have to answer their phone or have to like take care of something really quickly. And everybody understands it. It's like, okay, cool. Hey, he's taking a call. I'm gonna have to hop on a call record. We're gonna handle some stuff. Come right back to it. And we talked about having that same kind of dynamic with our kids. So I don't know. There's probably a better way to do it if you've heard anything that's like.
No, I think that it's, I did something similar literally just yesterday. We went to Busch Gardens. And I told my son, I said, well, the beautiful thing about dad running businesses from home is we can do this. I said, but the downfall about dad running businesses is that I'm going to have to probably make a phone call or two while we're out, and there's literally, I wasn't expecting it, but I had to make a phone call to do a wire transfer. And then I had to make a phone call to knock something. Like there was 2 or 3 things that went on that led to us not being able to do, the hand slap game while waiting in line for a roller coaster. Right. So it was like, sorry, buddy, I'm going to do this real quick so that we can get on this roller coaster, so, and how much they understand, I don't know. Like, I'd love to be able to peel their brain open a little bit more and kind of like, what do you really think about that? Because I feel like sometimes I get, and maybe you're in the same boat, but I feel sometimes I get the answer that they want daddy to hear, not necessarily the answer like that they're actually feeling, because you can almost see the difference between what they're saying and what their face tells me. So, because it's still, I would imagine, daddy's still having to step away, but but to also see that, I'm taking responsibility for the businesses that I run at the same time as doing what I can to be involved as a dad. I think that I'm hoping that shows up well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, to just have a conversation and say, hey, we're able to do this because of that, and compartmentalize a little bit, but just know that it's part of your life.
So are you including your kids in the business at all besides just having the conversation, or do you have thoughts or plans on what you would want to do, maybe in 3 years, this is what I want to do with Ben, or what are your ideas there?
Yeah. So they're not necessarily included, nor do I have the intention of them being included in current businesses that I have, but I have done businesses with them separately, like their own businesses.
Ooh, awesome.
Yeah. So my son has like a pet sitting business. He said, I want to have a pet sitting business. He came up with it. I'm like, perfect, let's do it. Let's write it all out. Here's the budget and how we're going to market it. The only thing my wife and I have done is helped him with like Facebook pages, Facebook posts, like the neighborhoods around town. But he's gotten jobs, and then we'd like actually put a little like some structure around it, so he sees how much he's making, how much he's spending, how he's going to charge, and it's really cool.
That's awesome.
So he's done one or two things like that, and then my daughter, who's the 8-year-old, a little bit younger, kind of tags along with him on that, and then tries to do her own thing, which is great. But I do have the goal of investing in something alongside each of them over the next couple of years, so either a piece of real estate. You said earlier, now is not a great time to do that, but giving them like their own business or their own project that I can help them with that actually has meaningful value, and teaches them that part of things before they get into college or as they're getting into college, so that they're not just getting textbook stuff, which for me, that's what it was. I mean, learned some cool things and great college experience. I got my MBA, so I paid for even more college, but all of that academic stuff didn't really teach me how to actually like make money or actually be efficient with time and resources.
Yeah.
So I think there's value in those things. My goal is to like have actual cash flowing something, whether it's a business or investment, with each of them, at least one before they're out of high school.
We have on a fantastic guest, a dad, a father of 2 kids, Courtney Atkinson. Thank you so very much for joining me, Courtney. So if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little background on your family, and then I'd love for you to kind of dive in on.
Yeah, I'm a real estate team leader. We have a team of a little over 50 agents in 3 markets. We'll sell a couple $100 million a year. Also have a coaching company for real estate agents, brokers, team leaders. Like my biggest hope is that, my young kids, Carson and Conrad, are now 6.5 and 8, want to be in that business, and that I can create a business that they might be, desirous of stepping into. So that's kind of my primary objective. I love the work that I do.
So like, at what point do you want to include the kids in the business? And how much do you want to push that or not push that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, not push it. But my vision is that if I make it look attractive enough, and if I'm a decent enough dad and I'm present enough and we have enough fun together and can afford a lifestyle that, is enjoyable, there'll be an attraction there at least. And, given the kind of work, it seems appealing to a kid anyway. I mean, the one thing about running a real estate team is that it's a little bit like a popularity contest. So that's kind of a neat thing to a kid, like they know that everybody knows their dad, and that's kind of cool. So yeah, what do I think of that? Well, my plan is our plan, my wife and I own all these companies together, is to sell a third of it to some of our partners. That's part of our exit plan here over the next 5 years, and retain 2/3 each, a third apiece, and then with the idea of at some point transferring them to each of the kids, so that they could run them together if they wish, and if not, we can sell them to the other partners. That's kind of the transition plan here over the longer period, to hang on to 2/3 of each company. what would that look like? I mean, we're big advocates for education. I know that that's, something that a lot of people contest these days, but, in Canada, it's not so expensive, to go to university. And, I can appreciate the value of a liberal arts education and the ability to establish some critical thinking skill, to mature a little bit in a sheltered environment, to learn how to write, to do accounting, to do those types of things. And then, go screw somebody else's business up for a couple of years and then, get your wits about you, get your butt beat a few times, and then, maybe decide to come home and join the old man. So that's kind of, if I could paint a picture, I think that's what it looks like. But, who knows, man? Cause you know how it is, right? Kids are so different. One of them's, really artistic and, just very sweet and patient and a little quiet. And, the other one's like me. He's got ADHD. He's all over the place, big feelings, big personality, tons of energy. And so, they could do any number of a million things that a person would want to do on this planet, and none of them could be real estate or coaching, right? So
yeah, for sure.
I'll just do my best to be a great example, to make it look enjoyable and to encourage them. And I really would like to work with them. Like, to me, that was one of my greatest pleasures in life would be to share, days with them and impacting the communities that we serve. And to agree, even in the coaching company, we get to impact communities across North America. That's a lot of fun. And so the potential to do that with my children would bring me great joy, but one has no control. One thing that is probably most relevant to our conversation today relates to finances and I think their philosophy around money. My truth was, growing up in the Maritimes, there was a lot of poor people, and I wouldn't say that we had scarcity, but there was definitely not enough for the things that we wanted, right? And I've been really intentional about helping the kids understand that money is not difficult to come by. Okay. The truth is that, once you've figured out a few little hacks, there's an abundance of money for us all to go out there and get. Now, the approach that I'm working at with them is that it really comes down to service. Just help as many people as you can with a problem that they can't get a lot of help with. And there's compensation associated with that. Whatever it is that brings you joy, do something that's meaningful to you, that's meaningful to as many people as you can possibly serve. And eventually, it'll work out, right? Ideally, there's going to be decent margins in that thing, ideally with a broad audience, all those things, of course. But yeah, that's been, I think, foundational in the conversations that we've been having is that, yes, we have money. Yes, we don't have to worry, but it's also because we have a mindset around money. We don't sit around worrying about it. We watch our language. We're generous, we're not, gaudy people that, need to talk about it or show it off, but we also don't want our kids to be scared or worried about it,
Yeah. I love that.
For bad. I mean, we've had kids at times where we were very close to being out of business, and I think, we were age appropriately transparent about those things. We wouldn't want them to worry about homelessness or anything, but we've never held back on what's going on and why things might be different this year than last year, I think those things are important for entrepreneurs because, it's easy for us to get in our own heads, right? It's easy for us to get concerned about these things and, be stuck in the grind and always trying to fix things and nothing's right. And I would want my kids to see that, like the greatest joy in this work that I can see is the fact that, I get to go to work and serve people and make an impact and help others live big lives. And if I'm good enough at that, everything else is going to be fine. And if I'm not doing a very good job at that, there's a really good chance because of this guy here, and I ought to be doing some more work on him.
So one thing that you said in there is you watch your language around money. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. Well, I learned at a young age, some fairly negative thoughts around money. We can't afford that. No, you can't have that. There was just a lot of a lot of kind of fear, if you will. And we really didn't talk about it either, but when we did, it was kind of always in this negative way. Okay. And, for our kids, it's not been about that. It's been about decisions and choices. And, if we do this thing, there's other things that we can't do. Or is this thing more meaningful or more appropriate than, giving money away than charity? And so I'll give you a great example. I was really proud of the kids. My wife and I are philanthropists. We gave quite a bit of money away over the past couple of years to a local charity. My wife was sexually abused as a kid. And so there's a great local charity that supports kids that have experienced that and helps them in the prosecution of their perpetrator. And so we've given quite a bit of money to them, and the kids know about that because we talk about money and we talk about what we do with it, and how much there is and what our daily nut is. They know what I got to make a day to pay the bills, and they also know not to go talking about these things broadly because that's not everybody's culture, but in our house it is. And but yeah, it was cool. The kids had a lemonade stand on the weekend. They made $80, and they were talking about how they might run the program, and they're building coupons and all this kind of cute stuff. And we talked a little bit about philanthropy and how much they might like to give away. And they kind of settled on, about half of it. They were going to increase the price from $1 to $3 and give half of it away. So they come ahead 50 cents a piece, right?
Yeah.
But hey,
that's good math.
Good model.
Good thinking.
Good model, right? And so they liked that idea. They settled out at $80 at the end of the day and decided that they wanted to give 70 away to the charity. And I thought, man, that's cool. On the one hand, it's cool that they're being charitable. This was on their own design. It wasn't, my kind of decision or contributions. The flip side of that could also be that, yeah, of course, they've got enough of an abundant mindset around money that they're not worried. Which is true. You get to be extra charitable when you have extra money, right?
Yes.
And so they're also aware of their privilege too. But yeah, I think, we're just trying to give them a full scope picture of what it looks like being, in a family like ours, and try to help them be responsible with that information. It's tough with a 6.5 and 8-year-old. You don't quite know what they say at school. So, trying to keep it as appropriate as possible and like you say, man, hope for the best. We're only my first run, man. I haven't been a parent before this, I got 2 kids close in age and we're figuring it out kind of at the same time, right?
That's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, look, I've never been a parent to an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 7-week-old before. You've never been an 8-year-old before and you're learning how to do that. I'm learning how to be the dad to an 8-year-old. So I don't know. This is my first time doing it. Let's figure it out together, But the way you talked about the language thing, that's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say. And there's a book that I really like, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And it talks about, our mindset on money. You can use it in just about anything, where we get our thought processes from, where we get our mindset from. And, we tend to get it from where our parents were. And unless we have some sort of a reset somewhere, for me, it was getting married to my wife. She had this magical thing called a savings account that I had never heard of before. And I was like, the heck do you save money for? This is silly, and, you still are in the military. You get paid every 2 weeks. What do you need to save money for? Right. It didn't make any sense to me. But that was a good reset for me and a good reframing of my thought process. And that really helped me start to think about the language I use around money. And I still catch myself once in a while going back to that old thought process and the way that I say it to my boys. And it's it brings that scarcity mindset around money as opposed to the abundance mindset around money. It's like, no, I don't, it's not that we don't have the money for it. We have the money to buy any toy in the store that you want. That's not the point. The point is you have 5 billion toys already, and 4,999,000,000 of them you don't play with. So is the money better spent here, or would you rather we go out for some ice cream and enjoy an experience, maybe do some mini putting and have fun together? Where are we actually using this money that makes more sense? I'm hoping that takes, but
well, it takes practice, and the thing with children is that it takes so much repetition, right? And we have to be, consistent as parents and, on the same page as our spouse. And, one of the things that I've been, thinking a lot about lately is, the downside to this abundant mindset that they have around money is that, the gratitude, isn't quite as high as I would like, if I'm being frank about it, right? They're not worried, right? And so, we're wondering, maybe we've gone a little bit too far with it. And, So yeah, I would say now we're kind of, really doubling down on just the little things, like thanks for breakfast, like I get it. Like I never said thanks for breakfast once in my life, but I also didn't have the privileges that these two kids have either.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, just really trying hard, around appreciation and just the little lessons, like, plates and dishwashers, go hug your mom, tell her you love her and tell her to have like just these little things. But, all these elements I think make better people. And, the psychology, right? The more grateful that we are, the more opportunity we see, the more we can spread that. And I think you and I can both agree the world needs more of it.
Today's guest is a good buddy of mine, Camille. I've known Camille for maybe 3 years, something like that. I have loved, Camille, watching you as a dad, like we were saying right before the recording started. You've got two beautiful daughters. It's just a fun family to watch and be around. So I want to kind of let the audience get to know you a little bit, have a good conversation with you, chatting about business and dadhood. But first, tell us a little bit about your family. Introduce your family and yourself to everybody, and we'll start from there.
So awesome. So I am married. So I'm a Polish immigrant, married to Patricia. She's also Polish. We've met here in the States though. Since 2004 we got married, but we've been together since about 97. We've had Natalia in 2007. So she's 16 now. And then Nell. So two girls. I didn't have like any wishes around having boys versus girls. I just kind of took it as it was. I was just excited to be a dad, and those two munchkins showed up, and the adventure of fatherhood was just for me, it was amazing. It still is, actually, obviously. So yeah, that's our family unit.
Tell me more about your actual businesses, because you said you have three of them, I believe is what you said.
Yeah.
So tell me about those. You started off buying a business from your mom that was like 4 trucks, and now you've got 3-4 businesses. So how was that transition? What happened in the middle there?
Yeah. So the main business is the siding and roofing residential company. Scaled it to about. Do we want to go into numbers or not necessary?
Whatever. Yeah. It's comfortable. I'd love to hear them. Sure, why not?
Sure. All right. So we scaled it to last year. We did $7 million in revenues. That company was mainly a siding installation company. Its main customer was the contractor / developer, new construction builds. So no real sales necessity, no marketing necessity for the first bunch of years of that business being in operations. And then about 2013, that I had that realization about not wanting to own a job. And I think a business owner should probably have a different approach to business and life. And that got me on a whole self-development journey, from which point, like books like E-Myth and other business books completely blew my mind. And I realized, holy crap. You can't scale a business if you're not working on it, right? Which was the main realization at the time. So then I really made a conscious effort to make sure we're pivoting to the retail residential customer side. And now we've got sales guys selling at the kitchen table. Now we have marketing. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about other geographical areas. Through EOS, we created our ideal customer. So we have an ideal demographic that we're targeting. I hired a marketing company. So that business is taking a shape of a real entity. I learned not too long ago that businesses go through these phases where in the beginning, let's call it, in my industry, call it from 1 million to 5 million, you're working on the how. You're trying to figure out how to do things, how to create these processes, these systems. And then from 5 to 10 million, now you're focusing on the who. Who can I bring into this company that will add value, that's smarter than me, that can run this process or this department? And once you have that core leadership team from 10 to 15 or 10 to 17 million, now you're back into how. on how to get the best out of that team that you've just created. What are the next steps? And then you're back into who, and it sort of revolves like that as your business grows. So right now I'm at the who aspect of things. Like I said, I hired a COO, we hired a project manager, we hired more salespeople. So we're taking a leap. There was a decision I needed to make about 2 years ago. Do I want to stay in this business and have a lifestyle business that generates, that $1 million and I'm happy and I got the money, I'm able to reinvest it, all is good, but I'm still working in the business. Like at the time, I was still selling up to about 2.5 years ago. I was still at the kitchen table. So do I want to do that and stay at this level? We were about 5 mil or so at the time. Or do I want to make this bet and invest back in the business, invest in people, bring in more salaries, bring in guys, people, and ladies who are smarter than me, and grow this business? But as a result, my net profit will shrink, right? And but it would allow me to gain more freedom, time freedom, and then I could focus on expansion or acquisitions or things like that. And that's the decision I made. And here we are, 3 years later, we're scaling. And alongside of that, about 1.5 years ago, I was presented with an opportunity to buy a business. And it's interesting how it's all about the seasons of life and where your mind is and what you've heard and what you've learned at particular stages in life. Because about 2-3 years ago, I was at a GoBundance event, sitting in the audience, and I'm hearing Cody Sanchez talk about business acquisition, scale, and she's talking about this enormous opportunity in that sector of business ownership. And I'm sitting and thinking, man, and by that time I got a couple of doors already. I'm all into real estate. Any money I make in the roofing business and the siding business, I deploy into real estate. And I'm sitting there and thinking, man, that real estate thing is cool. I love it. I love owning assets, but I don't have any secret sauce. I don't have any advantage in that space. I'm doing the Burr method like every other bigger pockets listener out there in the world. Everybody's doing the Burr method. But I've been in business for like close to 10, 15 years now. I bought it in 2004. I took it through in the 08 recession. I took it through COVID. And I'm like, there's something to it. I know how to run a business. By that time I was already building the team, so I know how to build a team. I am I think my unfair advantage in business, at least that's how I feel. I know there's other businesses that do it way better than I do, is the culture thing. Is my connection to the people and my ability to inspire, motivate, and create a vision and have their vision work in the company's vision, so we're all aligned towards the same goal. That's what makes me happy. And I thought to myself, yeah, man, I know how to do this. So after that event, my RDS was thinking about scale. Scale. I was already scaling, but like, what other things I can do around business, tied into business, and how I can grow that part of my portfolio, and started liquidating the real estate a little bit. And then my buddy brings over the opportunity to purchase a commercial roofing business here in New Jersey in my market. And because I was exposed to that Cody's talk, and because my mind was already working around it, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. And if it wasn't for that, I would probably say, no, man, I'm not buying a commercial roofing business. What do I know about commercial roofing?
Yeah.
Right. But it was the right time, right place. Fast forward 1.5 years, it took me forever to take it down. Now we own that business. We closed on it last October. And it's a great opportunity. It's a business that does, last year they did around 12 million in revenues. It's private work. They don't do low margin jobs. They're a high margin company, very sophisticated, very value driven to the customers. They have a fantastic team on board, a team that's been with the company for 15 to 25 years. Wow. Some of these people. So I gravitated towards that culture and that loyalty. That's essentially why I bought the business. I bought the business because of the people that were in it. So that's those are the two main businesses here in the Northeast, and we talked about my brother's business down in Florida. So those three businesses are the main entities. I created a holding company just to give ourselves some layers. Along with that, I created a service company. So now I pulled out the functions of all the businesses that could service as a shared service component. So my accounting, legal, financials, even some of the management positions, now they're employed by the service company and they provide a service to the other three entities, and I just bill back.
Okay.
So I'm trying to create this spoke wheel of where eventually, shortly, maybe next year, I'm able, once I dial in my systems to a T, and I can have a handbook that I can hand off to people. I can open satellite offices, or I can bring in other business owners who want to scale but don't know how. And I can say, guys, tap into, you can tap into my shared service company. We'll take care of all your back end processes. All you're going to be responsible for is sale and production out in your market, and I'll take care of the rest. And that will be the value add to business owners who want to be there but not sure how to do it. And then eventually they can go on their own and just sort of like a stepping stone to bigger and better things. But at the same time, service my entities that I'll purchase into the portfolio as well.
That's awesome. So, anyways, Natalia and Nell, how much do they know about the business? How much do you involve them in the business, if anything at all? Like what's been their experience inside of this whole world of their mom and dad being entrepreneurs?
They know about the business, of the business. I'm one of those dads that like, what do you want? What are you going to do when you grow up? You're going to own apartment buildings? Oh, there he is.
The joys of a dad podcast is you get to be a dad on the podcast. And what is all over your face, dude?
Cream cheese.
It's cream cheese. Don't worry about it.
What are you eating some bagels with cream cheese for breakfast? Yeah. You bum.
He's awesome.
You remember Mr. Camille?
Wow, he grew up. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Do you remember him? You sure? Yeah. You say hi?
You're excited about well, you already have one. Are you excited about your little sister? Oh, he can't.
You excited about your little sister, he said? Yeah. Do you love your little sister? Nah, you want us to return her at the store, don't you? No. All right. I'm going to keep recording, okay, bud? Yeah, bud?
Last night, did you feed my snake?
Yes, I did. And you know the best part about this is I don't edit the podcast, so that's totally staying in. So
I love it.
But, all right, bud. Love you, dude. Have a terrible day. No. So I think you are not kidding. Yeah. And that's, it's nuts. And he's only 8 years old, but yet still, like I'm watching him at the golf course and watching him run through life. And I'm like, dude, you're 8, not 18. Calm down. Calm down, buddy. Like it just, it's ridiculous. But, we're talking about Natalia and Nell. And the business.
Okay. So, right. So they know all about it. I'm always pushing. I'm always making silly comments about them being in the business, but they're completely not interested in any of that. Natalia's all into school right now and friends and making sure she taps into the high school experience as much as possible. She got herself a job in the bakery at the register, which was a crazy, not a crazy story, but it blindsided me because I had no idea she wanted a job or was looking for a job. One day she probably planned it with mom on the side. Obviously she did, but it's a local bakery that we always go to. So she knows everybody. And like one day she's like, I'm going in tomorrow to work. Like, what? Are you even old enough? And now she's working at the bakery on the weekends. And, I don't want to push, and I do push a little bit. I don't want to, I don't know. I want it to play out, see what happens, right? She's not too excited about college, which kind of makes me happy. But then
Yes.
again, my reservation is: what if you have a secret talent in biology, or what if you could be a tremendous value add to the society by being an attorney or a professional, and
Yeah.
you'll miss out on that. So I have that in the back of my head. But again, I'm not a huge fan of college, but it's real. And then at the same time, the spark around entrepreneurship for her is not there yet. Not to say that it's not going to be, but not there yet. So I'm in this spot where, you don't want to go to college, but I'm not sensing that urgency for into other endeavors. Like, what are you going to do? Right. But again, she's still young. I mean, I'm sure I'm over exaggerating. And little Nell, well, she's into everything, singing, dancing, gymnastics, and so she's still a soul to be figured out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's what? How old is she now? 12? 10?
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A little stand-up comedy. She does everything. She does everything.
Your two daughters have been they're awesome. Like, just their personalities, and you guys have done well. So are you guys going to Vermont?
Yes. So Natalia, obviously, she's now will be a 17-year-old by then. Not as easy to convince her to go to a Fanbundance event. So I'll probably show up with Nell, and then Natalia and Patricia will join us 2 days into it, because Natalia hates missing school for some reason. I don't know. my dad told me, you're missing school because we're going away. I'm like, peace out, let's go now. She's like, I can't miss school. I don't know. So yeah, Nell's back in. We missed an event or two, I think. No, the last one we missed.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that Nell's back into that community, and we've also started a young adult community with Michael Blanc, and we had our first meetup. So Go Abundance guys and couples who have kids between 17 and 22. That's for them. Awesome. And Michael's doing a fantastic job with that and creating some programming. So I'm going to have Natalia tap into that, and now we'll be there at Fanbundance.
That's awesome. Yeah, I it was awesome. Like, Michael Blanc was at the one in Montana. It was really cool to meet him and see his kids, and they worked really well as a family, and it was fun to watch that family unit as well. So, but you could tell, I mean, there was, you have my kids running around at that time, 7 and 3, and then his kids, somewhere between 17 and 22, 23, like that same age group you're talking about. So, a vast array of childhood activities going on there. So,
yes.
But is it a Go Abundant sanctioned thing, or just something you guys are doing on the side?
Well, it started off on the side, but we're trying to bring Go Abundance in and make it official and have them help us with it. But we sort of started it on the side. We had, like I said, our first meeting in Georgia, Atlanta, a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic. And we are actually going on a cruise trip not a cruise, a yacht. Come on, cruise, please.
Yeah. Jeez. Gracious.
Yes. A yacht trip to Croatia, taking the kids, and
that's awesome.
We're gonna curate some programming for young adults around that on that.
We have on Tim Vest. He's an entrepreneur, dad. Let's start off just, Tim, you telling us a little bit about yourself, telling everybody who it is that we're talking to today, your family, your business, or businesses in your case, and then we'll kind of go from there.
I have a company called Harvest Properties Group that I founded a while back. We purchase and operate real estate, mostly in the multifamily and triple net space. And primarily in the Carolinas, since that's where I'm located. So North, South Carolina, and Georgia is where we mostly do what we do. I'm also a co-founder of Making Moves Real Estate Coaching with my business partner, Tim Vitale. And we coach folks on real estate, kind of getting that first big deal across the finish line, if you will. I have a podcast and a small group called Barbaric Yacht that I founded that's focused on just kind of, working with folks, kind of getting through the entrepreneur world and kind of making your own voice known.
I'm going to start with the one that I know you include your daughter in on because she drew the logo for it, right? The barbaric yelp. Yeah, go ahead and switch it over. There it is. Yes. So for those of you who are just listening, you should be on the YouTube one as well. You can see the video and see the logo that his daughter drew. But so besides this logo, what else, or if anything, does your daughter kind of get included on in the business? What kind of conversations do you have about business with your daughter?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I'm going to start with probably my proudest moment of when she kind of walked in my office. She has this account that we put money in, and it's one of those things we use. Like we put some money in it every month. And then, like at Christmas, if she gets money, we always have this deal with her of any money you give us, we'll match it dollar for dollar and it goes in the account, but you can't touch it. Like it has to stay in the account for a while. Right. And somewhere, it was last year. Last year she walked in, she's like, can I see my account? She just likes to see it from time to time. So I logged in, showed it to her. And she goes, man, that's it. Like I thought it grew. It's not growing fast enough.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's savings.
At 0.01%, yes.
Yeah. I'm like, it's savings account.
Yeah.
And but then she literally goes, don't you do things to help invest, like people make money faster? And I'm like, yeah, I would say I'd like to say I do that. And she goes, I want to do that.
Nice.
Cool. So sat down with her and I said, well, this is what I do. And she goes, I want to do that. I want to invest in one of your deals. I said, all right, well, if you're going to do it, I said, this is how we're going to run it. I'm going to do with you exactly what I do with other investors. I'm going to present you deals. You figure out which one you want to invest in. And I did. I presented a couple of deals to her and proud dad moment, right? Like I presented her one and in my head, I'm sitting there going, this is the one you should get it. Mm-hmm. I didn't say that to her, but I'm like, this is, and she looks at it and she goes, this is the one I want to do.
Yes.
And I was like, all right. She picked up something. Either that or she's just good at math. So I put some money with it because there was a minimum investment, which she didn't have. So I put some money with it to hit the number. We created our own little LLC and we invested in that deal. And, she gets, when it does a distribution, she gets hers, it goes into her account. I get mine. And so that's one thing she's done. So she's invested in real estate. And then obviously she's helped me with my logo over here. And then what's something else the other thing she's done is part of her volunteer work is I sit on the board of a family housing nonprofit here in this area. And part of the way she gets her volunteer hours is she volunteers for the nonprofit. Nice. So she gets to help out with that as well. So those are some more of the ways she gets involved with me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and if she's good at the math, maybe you could teach her how to underwrite. She can start underwriting all your deals for you. Doug Spence is with us today. I want to let him introduce himself. Doug, please just kind of say hello, introduce your family, who you are, a little bit of background on you and your business, and we'll go from there.
My name is Doug Spence. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Did my undergrad at Baylor University, and then joined the Navy back in 2009. Was a aviation guy, so went to flight school for a couple of years in Pensacola, and then selected Super Hornets and went out to Lemoore, California for a year, then moved out to Japan for 3 years, did 3 carrier deployments, then moved to Pensacola, Florida to be a flight instructor, did that for 3 years, which is also where I met my wife, Kate. She is a Navy JAG. We're both active duty Navy. And then moved to San Diego in December of 2018. Was at SEAL Team 3 for 2 years, running their JTAC program, so Joint Terminal Attack Controller. And then now I'm back at an aviation command now, a non-flying aviation command, doing a department head tour now here in San Diego. We've been in San Diego for 4.5 years now. And then I got into real estate back in 2016 when I was in Pensacola. So that's where I bought my first property, really where I got addicted to real estate. And I've been surrounding myself with people that feed that addiction ever since. So it's only gotten worse, right? And just been doing real estate on the side while I'm active duty. And then we have our son, Calvin. He was born on Cinco de Mayo, 2022. Last year.
What kind of thoughts do you have on, I mean, your kid is just over a year, but what kind of thoughts do you have on how you're going to be talking to your kid about money? What kind of influences you want to have with your kid on money? What are your thoughts there on how you're going to push that forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, he's not really talking yet. He's like just babbling, and so I thankfully have some time to figure that out. And that's why I like being in a group like Abundance where, there's hundreds of other people that have figured that out and made mistakes, and you can learn from their mistakes when it comes to talking to kids about money. But, I think it's a lot of it is just showing him, not necessarily telling him, but kind of showing him like, hey, here's how, here's where we got to make sure we save money. We don't want to spend everything. And I think just talking through things, as life events come up, like what is a credit card? Okay. Let's talk about what a credit card is. Let's talk about how we pay it off every month. No matter what, we spend below our means. I think, I haven't really put too much, because he's so young, I haven't put too much thought exactly into how to do it. But I think, I like the idea of, some kind of an allowance just to show him like, hey, here's your income. You can spend it how you want to. You can save it. You can do extra stuff around the house to earn more income. But if you want to buy something big, you got to save up for it. Maybe depending on the item, we'd meet him halfway and like, but it really just driving those lessons through various things, especially reiterating that like, just because you want something doesn't mean you can have something. Cause I think that, having that kind of mindset, especially with parents that grow up in a household where they didn't have everything, or maybe they were, that they lived, their parents were maybe paycheck to paycheck, or they didn't have the stuff that they wanted and all that. And then they get to a point where they can afford stuff, and then they want to give their kid everything to have, everything they want. And then that's like, that kind of conditions the kid to like, if I want something, I can get it. How do I get it? Mm-hmm. Credit card, So if you're not teaching them that stuff, it can be very, detrimental, obviously. But, I guess that's a good question for you. Like, how have you done it? I mean, do you do the allowance thing or?
At the moment, no. So I've definitely talked about investing, and kind of, showing what we do. And, there's, we've been talking about business owning, and, like we just went a couple days ago, went to do some shark tooth hunting. Like there's this place a couple hours away from here where you can just go. They dig up all this old dirt that's got a bunch of shark teeth in it. Maybe you can get a megalodon tooth type of thing. So the boys were super excited. They thought it was awesome. We found like some pieces of megalodon teeth. So I mean, you're like the root. It was like this. It was like 1.5 inches thick where it broke off. So I was like, goodness gracious, I couldn't imagine like this tooth had to be huge. But anyways, so while we were out there, I was like, hey, what do you think? Like we've got, I think we have like 270 teeth or something like that we found. So while we were hunting, and he was just loving life, I was like, well, what do you think about, what can we do with all these teeth? And started talking about like, okay, well, maybe we make jewelry of it, but find out how much we could sell some shark teeth jewelry for, And then he was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. And then we've got an au pair, and she was like, yeah, I'll help do that, So then now we can make a project out of, okay, well, we went and we spent this much money on going to go do this shark tooth hunt. And now, so we need that money back plus the supplies that we have. So like, let's do the math, calculate it out. And like, that's one of our plans now, because that was just a couple days ago. So now I've got to get like all the stuff to make the necklaces and bracelets and all that type of stuff. But at least it gets him thinking about business and money. And now he's going to earn money. So, I mean, I've even started talking about, okay, well, how about we do, I get 75% of the profits until I get my money back. And then we split it down to 50-50, or maybe 75-25. We switch it over once I get all my money back. Now you get 75%, I get 20. So we're just having conversations about what that money looks like. Now I've got to write it all out on paper so that he can kind of, it's hard to track all in an 8-year-old's brain. But, he loves being able to talk about money. And I'd say one of the hardest things is, this might be easier for you than it was for me, but a lot of what I heard was, no, we can't afford that. No, like we don't have enough money for that. And yes, I still say that rather often. not because we can't afford it, because we can. Like, I mean, he's asking for a bouncy ball, right? But we have 7,000 other bouncy balls. Do you really need a bouncy ball? Like, what could we use that money for? So now it's more, I'm trying to make sure that the language that I say is more, not to be cliche, but more abundance mindset as opposed to scarcity mindset. Like, no, we could totally afford that. We have the money for it. Like, no big deal. But is that really where we want to spend our money? Because if we spend our money on that, then I can't use that money for, when you want to go to some, islands of adventure out in Orlando or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's where it seems like it'd be a good introduction of like wants versus needs.
Yeah.
And then also introducing the idea, which I'm sure is tough for kids to understand. Well, I mean, it's tough for most adults to understand, but like delayed gratification, like not getting it right now because it feels good. It feels good to get that toy in the store right now, but you have 7 of these other ones at home. So you just wait till but in the moment they see it, they want it, which is how, I mean, that's how adults are too,
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But I think that getting that delayed gratification, hey, you can buy this right now, but remember where you said you wanted to save up for a guitar? So if you buy this now, it's going to be a lot longer until you can get that guitar. So which one do you want? Do you want the ball right now, or do you want to extend the time until you can get the guitar or whatever, the bigger purchase down the road? And then you can see them like thinking, and let them make that decision. So
yeah, and then they could feel the pain of the wrong decisions too at that point. And it's funny because we have my son had a wallet that had like, I don't know, $380 or something like that. And if I brought him in here, he would tell you to the dollar how much was in there. But when we moved from Virginia to Florida, it is no longer around. Our only assumption is, at this point, with everything that we've done to try to find it, is that the movers put it in their pocket, thinking it was their Spider-Man wallet, perhaps. And it is completely gone. Like, and so, now it's been a talk about, okay, well, why do some people do that with money? Like, how are they thinking about money versus how you're thinking about money? Because like, we can replenish this and we can earn money back, and we could, like, there's a billion ways to make that money back. So, don't let it be the end of the world for you. Like, let's figure out, and he's fine with it. He's like, all right, well, I mean, let's figure out how to get it back, So we replenished the majority of it. Really all of it, other than what he owed us, because we bought something else for him. Like, to your point, and this is your money that we're spending. So
right.
But clearly somebody who's stealing money has a bad mindset about money. So let's have a conversation about that. Like, there's, we could be watching TV about something, like, was that a wise move that they just did? Like with this financial thing or with this whatever. I sound almost like that's all I do is teach them. I feel like that, but anytime there's an opportunity and I think of it, I'm going to say something, like, because I never had those thoughts until I was much older. So if I can get it ingrained in his brain now to think about money that way, then great, So
yeah. And I think another, my wife, she didn't get a lot of money conversations growing up either. So it's, but thankfully we've both been intentional. We've already been talking about, like, how are we going to handle that? And I think that's another thing, is like making sure, the spouse is on the same page as well, so that you're unified with how you're going to talk about all that. But the thing that I've thought about a bit more, rather than like the tactical day-to-day stuff, is like, how do you have the conversation with like an older kid, maybe not that much, like, older than 10, once they're really starting to understand the concepts of like wealth, and there's, these people drive this kind of car and live in this kind of house, and these people live in this kind of house, so how do you have the conversation of like, wealth and, the transfer of wealth, and like how, like, me and your mom are wealthy, but that doesn't mean you are, that doesn't mean you're wealthy, And so, you're living with us now, but you're going to have to do something on your own someday. And how do you transfer or not transfer that wealth to them? How do you talk to them in a way about wealth to know that they're going to have to build something on their own if that's something that they want, and do you give anything to your kids? Like, how do you, like, if they're going off to college, do you pay for their college? Well, I guess my wife's already transferred her GI Bill to our son, but like, what about groceries when they're living in college? Do you pay for that or not? Do they need to get a job? What, part-time versus full-time? Do they have to work in the summer? Like, how do you I think that's gonna be tougher because there's so many different ways to do it, and there's 100 different opinions on how to do that correctly. There's because I had buddies in college that had to work part-time or full-time because their parents were like, hey, we're paying for your tuition, that's it. And then other friends who like parents paid for everything because they didn't want them to work because they wanted them to focus on school. So and there's valid points to all that. In even a bigger level of conversation, does it make sense to even go to college at all? But just for the sake of conversation, like how do you handle that college thing? Because there's no like necessarily right or wrong answer, and a lot of it is based off of what we did growing up because that's our this is the way that it was done for me. So obviously that is the best way to do it, but is it? Maybe it's not.
May or may not be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I do think about that kind of stuff kind of like further down the road more than like, here's why you can't have that toy right now, but it's probably because my son is so young. He's not even like, having that stuff yet. And just my personality type, I just zoom ahead years in the future for some reason to think about conversations that we'll be having 15 years from now. But that's another thing. I think about that more often, I think, than those tactical day-to-day conversations about money. But I think it's one of those like, reaching out to Go Bros and folks I know, like, hey, my son said this, like, how do you handle that? Or what book did you read to talk about money in this way to your kids? So I think I'm not sure how I'm going to handle all that stuff. But that's why I'm in a group like Abundance. So
would have Jamie Gruber on the podcast today. So Jamie and I have known each other for, 5 years, something like that, between a couple different masterminds that we've been in. But I'm really excited to have Jamie on. He's another GoBundance guy, another real estate business owner, that type of guy. So to kick it off, Jamie, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, what kind of business / businesses you're involved in.
I am almost 13-year happily married man. My wife Sylvia and I met each other while working together in Boston. She actually worked for me. We have 2 young boys, 8 and 5. Sebastian, both boys. Sebastian's 8, Julian's 5. I host the Tribe of Millionaires podcast. It's in partnership with GoBundance. I've been a member for 4+ years, and a lot has happened in my life that I credit GoBundance for. So I partnered up and I have some businesses with them. So people get to know me through the podcast. When they know me and like me enough, they tend to join the GoBundance Emerge community, which I own. So GoBundance Emerge is sort of the feeder program for future millionaires. We create whole life millionaires, I like to say, and people will join that. From there, I'm partnered with Quantum Capital. We invest in value add, distressed BC class workforce housing, multifamily housing in Denver, Austin, a little bit in LA. And that's kind of the funnel of my business, if you will, or all of my businesses in one funnel. And that's, I think, the nutshell of it.
When it comes to the business, though, how much involvement do you want to have? How much involvement do they have? What do you talk to them about with your businesses? And like, what kind of exposure do they have into that world?
Yeah, I don't have I can't say that they have like intentional exposure. It's funny you say this though. They know that I have a podcast. My son watches like YouTube Kids and stuff. So he gets oh wait, you're on YouTube. I'm like, yeah. So they get the podcast part of it. They understand real estate. We talk a lot about real estate. My older son, especially, like he loves, he plays Minecraft. So he builds on Minecraft and he'll say like, look, I built this apartment building and da, 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 da. So he gets the real estate.
That's awesome.
They kind of have access to what they want to know. I haven't forced it. I haven't pushed it. When they ask, we talk about it. But they understand the podcast. They understand I have a show or whatever. But in Lake Oconee in October, it's funny. I just said this to my wife. We have a lot of just said this to my wife moments on this call, but it is what it is. In Lake Oconee, do you know Tim Grover? Do you know who Tim Grover is?
Yes.
You do? Tim, yeah. So he's the keynote, right? So he's the keynote for the Lake Oconee event. And then he's going to go over
phenomenal. Now I'm sad that I'm not going.
Well, but he's doing a keynote on stage for the main event. And then he's going to go over to the champion room, which is, for people listening to net, the rich guys. He's going to go over to the champion room and do a fireside chat with me that I'll then repurpose as a podcast, right? So I'll have him on stage live, just like I had Tom Bilyeu and Jesse Itzler, and I hope Jordan Peterson in the near future. We're working on that. But to be on stage with a guy like Tim Grover, not that my kids know who he is, it doesn't really matter. But I said to my wife, like, I think I want my dad and my oldest son to come to be in the back of the room when I do that interview to really get a sense of like, oh, wow, that's my it's my dad. My dad's up there talking to this guy. There's 100 guys in the room, but this guy's talking to why is my dad the guy up there? You know, like, and for my dad, you know, he at this age, softening, you know, I don't know, but my dad is not the dad that he was.
Yeah,
he's not the man he was at 40. Like, I get on my kids and my dad's like, come on, leave him alone. I'm like, who the heck are you? Who is this guy? Like, bring my father back. I thought he'd be behind me, like, yeah, get him, you know, like, nah, like, leave him alone. But anyway, he would enjoy seeing his son, you know, in that moment as well, whatever that appears to be, or however much ego that might sound like it has. I don't really care. But yeah, I in that way, what I want my kid to see is that's my people ask me with podcasts, because I have some really cool guests, and I've done live podcast interviews in front of 300 people, right? And people every time like, were you nervous? I'm like, no. There's plenty of other things in life I'm nervous about, but that's my thing, right? I was born for something like that. I don't think you're born for a role, but I was born to have that kind of interaction with people and for it to be out there for others. I was born to communicate in that way. So I'm not nervous. I don't feel intimidated if it's, you know, who have I had? Ryan Serhant, Exhibit, the rapper, like I said, Jesse Itzler, Tom Bilyeu, when it's Tim Grover, Jordan P. I don't feel intimidated because that's my spot. And for my kid to be able to see dad in his element, like, well, that's, you talk about masculinity, like, that's a guy who's doing what he's intended to do. I don't think he'll recognize that now, but one day he'll have the ability to look back like we're doing right now and say, man, I watched my dad on stage with this. I don't even remember who the guy was, but he was up on stage and he was the guy. Like, all these people were watching him talk to this guy, and all these guys were multimillionaires, and he had all of their attention, right? Like, that's my conquering of the world. Like, I can still add value to guys that might be further ahead of me economically or whatever. That's my thing. That's me conquering. Yeah. For my son to see me in that way is really important to me. I think the 5-year-old would, I don't know if he'd remember it. So I'm not saying I don't want to bring him, but the 8-year-old is at that age where he'll at least have that memory. So I remember the first time I walked into a football game with my dad, Buffalo Bill, big Buffalo Bills fan. And you watch it on TV, watch it on TV, just like my son sees me on YouTube. But I remember walking out of the tunnel, like, whatever, the upper deck, and then seeing the field for the first time. And it was like, whoa, like, I've seen this. I know all these, I've seen all of this on TV, but whoa. And I guess in part of me is hoping or thinking that that's kind of the experience he would have. Like, oh, wow. Like, I've seen the edited two-dimensional version of this, but whoa, there's like a whole production crew, and there's cameras, and there's all these people, and it's him up there, So I that's what I'm hoping he gets from it. We'll see if he does, but that's what I envision it.
I have a fellow veteran, father, real estate investor, business-minded guy. I'm really looking forward to getting to know Stu a little bit better. But we got Stu Grazier on the podcast. Stu, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little about your family, a little bit about your business, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Stu Grazier. I am a husband to my beautiful bride, Crystal. We've been married. August will be our 15th year anniversary. And then we have 2 amazing children, 8-year-old daughter, her name is Collins, and a 5-year-old son, his name is Wells. Or if you ask him, he's 5.5. I've dedicated my life to really being the best husband, the best father, and just the best leader that I could possibly be in the community. I'm a veteran. I retired from the Navy after 20 years of service. I flew helicopters for about 10 years, and then I transitioned and flew C-40s, or like a Boeing 737 as well. And then lastly, like you said, real estate investor, own multiple businesses. Started doing investing when I was right out of college in flight school in Pensacola. I started investing in real estate, and I've tried about every asset, every niche, every strategy that I could possibly do. I've failed a lot. I've learned a lot, but somewhere along those lines, I've found some success in a few things too.
So what are your thoughts on including the kids in business? Do you already include them in stuff, or do you want to include them in more stuff later? How do you kind of, have you worked through that thought process with including them in the business?
Yeah, I 100% love the idea of including them in business. We do it ourselves. My kids are both private money lenders to the bank of dad. And we actually have promissory notes for each of my kids. They get this is only offered to my two kids and only to probably maybe age 9 or 10, but they get 100% interest, annualized interest on their money. So my daughter started doing private lending to the bank of dad about 2 years ago. And she's already like, I think she's going to get a check for like $500 this year because it's like 100% interest. But it's teaching them how to make money with their money, put their money to work. And so, we talk about that stuff. Like, they know I'm a real estate investor. They know that, we own rental properties. They're in the car and they're listening to my conversations when I'm raising capital for a deal or talking to the property manager about something bad that happened. I show them pictures of our houses and the rehabs, and most of the properties that we own are out of state. We do own some stuff in Colorado, so they'll come every now and then and look at it. But yeah, man, I think they should be listening. They should be involved. If you can teach them about money and finances and create, financially literate children, the earlier the better.
Nice. Yeah, completely agree there, especially on the financial side of the house. But do you have anything set up like, so they invest with the Bank of Dad, but do they, are they getting paid at all through any of your companies? Like, so I know that you can get like IRAs and stuff like that set up for your kids if they're doing work inside of the stuff, so do you have some of that type of stuff set up?
Yep, sure do. Yep. So they are both employees of my company.
Nice.
And I do a lot of, I use them a lot on, advertising, marketing, social media posts. They're in videos, and so I pay them essentially as marketing advertising consultants. And this is 100% legal. I'm not a CPA or a lawyer by any means, but I've ran all this through my CPA and my lawyer, and I'm all on the up and up. But as an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, they're employees of mine, and I will give them work age appropriate for them to work in my business. Sometimes if we don't do much of it anymore, but when we were doing like direct mail, they would put the stamps on, or they would write addresses, or whatever age appropriate work you can put them in. Yeah, so we pay them. We pay them about $5,500 a year.
What do you know?
And
put it right into an IRA. That's good.
The exact amount that we could put right into an IRA. So so both of my kids have Roth IRAs, and they started those a couple of years ago. And so we put the earned income into their Roth IRA every year. And then also we opened up whole life insurance policies for them.
Nice. Yeah.
So I have one of myself. My wife has one, and we use the cash value portion of that to do private lending, to invest in real estate. And we opened up accounts for them too. So both of them have a death benefit of like a couple million, and so again, we take that earned income that we pay them, and we put some of that into their monthly into their life insurance policy.
That's awesome.
So their kids, and the plan and the idea is that once they're old enough to understand it, we're going to teach them what a whole life policy is, what you can do, what's the positives and benefits of it, and how you use that to pay for things, to invest with it, and then they're going to learn, then they're going to take it over at some point, and then they will do the same thing for their kids. And my grandkids, which aren't even existing yet, they're already set up to be millionaires whenever
for sure
their parents go. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just kind of creating that legacy.
In the process, you get to deduct that $11,000, $5,500 for each kids from your business. Yep. Those are business expenses for you guys. So it's income for them that they put right into the stuff. I mean, that's a phenomenal setup for sure. And that's it's out of pure laziness. I know that I can do it. I know that I should do it, but I have yet to actually do it with the kids. Just them showing up on the podcast. Obviously, again, not a lawyer, not a CPA, but including them in things as far as, advertising. And, we brought them up to Atlanta for a property we have up there, and, to be able to do some pictures and things like that with the kids. And there, that's them, being advertising, sales, and marketing consultants for us, and little models for us. And those are valid things to pay your kids with, or for, I should say. So definitely recommend, if you're listening and you do not do that with your kids, you should. It's way better than an allowance, because this is something that's going to last a lot longer than an allowance. So
100%.
The allowance is something different.
I have a buddy, a good buddy of mine. His name's Marcus Long, and he we tried it for a little bit. I have not been good at keeping this up, but he did a podcast and a blog about it, where he teaches his kids essentially about passive income, and he uses home appliances as comparing it to like a rental property. And so he basically gave the opportunity to his kids to buy an appliance. So it could be a microwave or a blender or a dishwasher or something like that. And he offered kind of a low price of like $20 or something like that. And so they own the microwave, and every time the parents use the microwave, they have to rent it. And they have a tracker on the microwave. And so every time that they use the microwave, they have to pay, a penny to use, rent the microwave. And so they keep track of it all month long, and then they tally it up at the end. And then they add in insurance and taxes and maintenance and all these things that you would add into, an expense and a cost. And so they basically, their microwave that they bought for $20 now becomes an income generator for them. And he talks about, all this stuff. And so like at the end of the month, they basically pay rent for the number of times they used the microwave. So
I really like that. Was Marcus Long, you said? Make sure I wrote that down right. I'm going to look him up. That's awesome.
A good dude.
Yeah, I've been saying for a little while. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Sure. I would need a chart on the appliance that we can mark down and remember, and be able,
right?
That's I would always forget,
But think about. It's such a great lesson, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I just recently created a chart for fitness stuff, because it's an important thing in the family. My oldest really loves it. I'm a rather broken individual, so fitness is a little bit of a different thing for me nowadays than it ever used to be. But we made a little chart for like how many push-ups you could do in a minute, how many sit-ups you could do in a minute, how many pull-ups you could do, how many burpees you could do in a minute, like just a few different things that we can have like a tally of, okay, well, what was your previous record, what's your current record, and then seeing the progress as it goes through. So I'd love to create a little chart like that and put it on the microwave, just to say, hey, you own this microwave. Like that's really a cool idea. Honestly, I suppose the structure would be a little bit of a pain to set up, but in the grand scheme of things, if it really isn't going to be that much. I could print a little thing over, make it happen, stick it on there, have a little white, dry erase marker next to it. The microwave probably is a bad example. It gets used multiple times daily. Yeah. Like maybe go with like a blender or something that start with an easy one where it's maybe not as used as often. Yeah, no kidding. Less tally marks I have to worry about.
Yeah, right.
My son, knowing him, he'd be trying to negotiate it. Like I think it should be $1 per use, Dad. I think that $1 is an acceptable response. Yeah. Like, no, buddy. Like I don't know if you understand this. That's awesome.
Yeah,
but
so I think it's great to have kids in the business and teaching that stuff.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I completely agree. I want them around a lot of the conversations and around, knowing why I'm talking to people. And, I have oftentimes I put my headphones in if there's a call while I'm in the car, mainly because the boys love to play and fight and, be boys in the back seat. But if it's just Adam in the car, especially having him hear those conversations and understand what Daddy's doing while he's on the phone, and whether it's a negotiation, whether it's a broker, whether it's just a business partner or whatever it is, like being able to hear those and being involved in those conversations. And one guy I was talking to, he was like, yeah, and I always ask afterwards, like, what did you think about that conversation? How did you think it went? What do you think Dad could have done better? What do you think, the other guy's response to this was, or whatever it is? And being a little bit more intentional about that is something that I would really like to start doing as well.
That's good, man.
Because it goes back to, and I've said this I think 100 times at this point, is the things that they're learning are caught, not taught, right? Like what is it that they're seeing us do that is helping them learn something, as opposed to what am I teaching them, what am I telling them? Because it's what am I showing them is a lot more of an example of what's actually happening. So
yeah, we even the words that you use are so important. We started saying GDHT, Grazers Do Hard Things,
Nice.
around the house, and it's kind of become just a saying. And we go on hikes a lot here in Colorado, and we'll go on challenging hikes where my 5-year-old has to climb, there's times where he's a little worried, he's a little scared, and we push him. We push him to, and we say Grazers do hard things. And a couple weeks ago, he was on his scooter and he was riding around in our driveway in our cul-de-sac, and he fell and he skinned up his knee. He was trying a little jump off of the curb, and he fell. And he was kind of got up and started crying a little bit, and then he kind of wiped it off, and he's like, I know, Dad. I'm going to get up and I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to go do it again because Grazers do hard things. I was like, yes!
Success!
Win! But, they're sponges, man. They're just little sponges. And so they do, and they see what you do. And so you just have to be intentional with that kind of stuff and be conscientious of what you're saying.
So, AJ, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us about your family and your business, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so I'm a 38-year-old young man from northern Wisconsin, currently living in Nashville, Tennessee, with my wife of 7 years. Well, I met her 10 years ago. It's our 10-year anniversary meeting. We have a year-and-a-half-year-old daughter. We lived in LA for 10 years, and then we moved to Nashville. I've worked in the automotive industry pretty much my whole career, starting with an energy drink that Coca-Cola owned, running the marketing in the Midwest, to managing race car drivers, to working for large wheel corporations owned by private equity. And in 2017, I believe it was, I found myself at a PR agency in LA, helping them build out their digital business unit. 2018, I started Wild Lives Media. Today, we have, between a team in the US and a team in Canada, we have about 14, 15 employees, 26, 27 clients or so. We'll do about $1.5 million this year in revenue for ourselves, and probably 30 to 40 million for clients anyways, client revenue. So,
wow.
It's been a wild ride for sure. Most of the growth came in November, December, January of this last year, 22 to 23. Things just really exploded.
So what kind of plans do you have in the future for your children, if anything, for your at the moment child, potentially future children, as far as involvement in business? Have you given that any thought at all, like involving your daughter in the business, or how you want to expose her to business, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I don't want to do this forever. So so what I do now, kind of, to be transparent, I didn't really want to do again. The service-based industry for what I do in marketing is exhausting. It's a lot of work. And just now, thankfully, I have the team that's allowing me to take a little bit more space. I'm going to take tomorrow off and just hang out with my family. But it's not something that I wanted to do, right? So as of right now, it's fun. It's a lot of work. It's fun. But it's a vehicle to get to where I want to be, not from a revenue perspective, I guess a little bit, but more so from a process acumen. What am I building to be able to understand how I need to get to where I want to be? But No, we have some real estate, and we're planning on basically building some additional businesses and buying some businesses and whatnot and growing them, whether it's flipping or holding and growing. So I definitely want my daughter involved in that stuff. And I think if she's as smart when she's older as she is now, she's going to be massively smarter than me. She continues to impress me every day. But yeah, I think in the next, 3 years, ideally, my family, my wife included, kind of operates as our own kind of managing operation over several different businesses.
Awesome.
Ideally, yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, and then I mean, you can even employ your daughter, pay her a salary. That becomes a deduction for your business, and put an IRA together for her. But there's a lot of really, really cool things to be able to do with the kiddos. So I love the thought process there.